Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh. It has been a heck of an hour. I had the blue screen of death on one of my computers. So now I have to completely replace that computer. It's done. Oh, it's so much fun. So thank you for hanging with us. We will get to everybody as quickly as we can this evening. Still hoping to get Tony Saper in tonight. If not, we'll reschedule him for tomorrow night. But we have Lisa Tull with us. And we will get right into the interview. And I will say right off the bat, forgive the lighting of my house. It's very dark in here. So we're just going to go with it. Lisa, welcome. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping working on this.
Well, it's always technology is a wonderful thing, except when something happens. So I'm going to start with your introduction, and then we'll go right into your opening statement. Lisa and her husband purchased their home in 2006 and were drawn to the area because of its proximity to downtown, diversity, excellent schools. She's been a teacher her entire adult life, except for when she stayed at home with the two boys, returning to work when her youngest started kindergarten. She has her master's in adaptive education from KU and started with the North Kansas City School District in 2016 as a homebound teacher. Both of her boys are Briarcliff students. Go Bears. My oldest son was a Bear as well. And she served on the Briarcliff PTA board for 4 years. Lisa, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this. It's so important since we can't go door to door.
It is. COVID changed a lot of things. So I'm going to have you start with about 3 minutes of an opening statement to the people who would vote for you.
Okay. I tried to put together a pretty good summary. I would add that another thing that drew us to this house is the small footprint. So we live in a row home that's insulated on both sides. Not that matters. Something that I think you should know about me is I will do my research. So I may not always be the best public speaker, but I'm hoping in the questions that are laid out, I can demonstrate to you that I will be prepared and I do my research and I will answer as completely and honestly as possible. So we're ready to get this show started.
So we're going to get started with the 5 questions that were asked of every candidate. These were previously submitted when we were going to have the forum together in person. And then we'll go to on-screen comments and questions. So the first question is, how will you work to promote diversity in our community?
Well, we're really fortunate because we already have a really welcoming community. We've got wonderful, what I think of as big city amenities in a small town. So we have the dog park, the splash pad, the regular park, the library. The new public art installations that are happening right now are wonderful. I know you appreciate that too. I saw your comments on that. So going forward, how do we foster diversity? So something we have now that I think we would need to maintain is a well-respected police force that has positive interactions with our residents and people that come into the city. Also, we'll need to continue our good relationship with the hospital and with the school district. And as stated before, I work for the school district. I'm very proud of North Kansas City School District. Their leaders are wonderful, and they never shy away from the difficult questions. So this is a wonderful thing for me because they've been working on equity and inclusion for the last 2 years. That's what, as staff members, we've been trained on. So I think going forward with that in mind, we need to look at the leadership in North Kansas City. We could definitely use a little work on diversity in leadership. Our leaders are often recruited, not volunteered. So if we're looking at city councils, kind of a big, you have to take on a lot, it's a little bit costly. I understand not everybody would be suited for that, but we have several positions on boards and commissions that are appointed by the mayor. So I would encourage our current mayor and any following mayors to really be intentional about the people, the qualified people that we put in those positions, and seek out women, people of color, faces that we don't see on those boards right now. So for example, the Planning Commission has 0 women and 0 people of color. And that's something that when an opening pops up, we could be mindful of that. So I heard someone else talk about, well, we can't force people to volunteer to do this, and that's true. But if we turned to our city council members who know their neighborhoods and know the people that live in their neighborhoods, they would know who to talk to and who to recommend. So that would be a suggestion I have going forward.
Loaded stuff.
Right? Let's just knock it out of the park with the first question.
Yes. How would you
It's not easiest to hardest.
You know, and hopefully we will have some great questions from the viewers as well. How do you balance the needs and wants of residents and the business community?
I understand that can be tricky. So the city and the city council going forward really do have to balance between residents and businesses. And it's not just residents and businesses, because we have many different types of businesses. And then also the institutions like the high school and the hospital. So one thing that I've heard other people comment talking to you that I agree with is we have to squash the inflammatory language. So you haven't said this, but when you hear businesses versus residents, I feel like that's not opening up a positive discussion. So coming together, finding common ground. And then how do we balance? Well, residents and businesses and the hospital and North Kansas City High School all have needs and wants. So if we're going to prioritize that, I would say the first thing that we need to prioritize is health and safety. So if we look at it a lens from that, from most important to the least important, we can get those must-haves for everybody.
Wow. That's a tall order, but you are right. So along those lines, how do you think the city can better communicate with residents, businesses, and consumers?
I was on the PTA board for 4 years, and every year it was our goal to improve communication. It's a really hard thing. So you have people that are spending many hours working on a project, and then you've had your finished project and you put it out there and people don't see it. You're like, but I worked on it. So what we found over the years that worked best of all is to push your information out there in many different ways and multiple times. So the texting information that comes from the city is great. If we could even just push that link out via Facebook, via Twitter, via newsletters, we'd have more people linked up. And it seems redundant when you're doing it. When we started doing it at Briarcliff, it was like, I've already done this 8 times, but it takes 8 times to reach everybody and to reach them in the mode of communication that they prefer.
Communication seems to be the theme. So how can, so as we look at the communication strategies, is there a difference in how we communicate with residents and businesses versus consumers?
That's a good question. I don't think so, because when we make safety choices, if we're going to our hierarchy, that applies to everyone. And if we make changes in the community, it impacts everyone. So I wouldn't think there would be a, you need to know this and you don't need to know this. I'd rather have more information and maybe not need it all than not hear something I wish I had been told.
What is your position on the streetcar expansion to North Kansas City?
The streetcar is the dream. I would be so excited. I think it might actually be the spark that we need to get this economy rolling again after extended shutdown. You can see the line that's already in place. It's really helped businesses that are on that line. It's good for business, but it's also good for safety and the environment. So obviously using public transportation is better for the environment, and safety wise, I mean, my husband and I take the streetcar to Sprint Center or Union Station with the kids. And if you were going out, if somebody was coming to North Kansas City to have dinner and drinks at one of our many lovely places, they could take public transportation home, and that would be safer for everybody.
So there's been a lot of talk about development of North Kansas City and, you know, all of the entertainment destinations that we have here, all of the amenities. What's your position on affordable housing in North Kansas City, including the single family dwellings and apartments?
Yes. Switch my page. I believe that a healthy community is a well-blended community. So I support affordable housing, and the city has, and I would expect them to continue to support mixed income and affordable housing. So what that looks like, as an example of something that we have right now, is the gardens. They're my neighbors. 2/3 of the housing at the gardens is affordable. The gallery lofts that will be coming, 2/3 of those apartments are affordable. We have 2 other new projects that aren't adding affordable, but in the future, I think you could tie incentives to a percentage of your building being affordable. And it comes back to diversity too. If you want to foster a diverse community, you need to offer different styles of homes that house different numbers of people at different price ranges.
So an interesting question, and I don't know that I've asked it as a follow-up question so far, but what is the definition of affordable housing? Because I think we might have a disconnect in what people understand affordable housing is.
So affordable housing can be different things. Affordable housing that is subsidized, it can be subsidized by a tax credit. And when you come in, if you have tax credits, you have to have a certain percentage of your apartments that are affordable. It doesn't mean that they're free necessarily. It means it costs less, especially like at the gardens. If you're on a fixed income, it would better suit you, your needs. And I think it was Zach that said if you spend more than 30% of your income on housing, you've overextended yourself.
Which is, I mean, in today's age, it's easy to do. I'm just going to double check and see if we have any. That's all of the questions that were submitted by the community previously. We will open it up to questions from the community that are watching live right now. If anybody has any questions, now would be a great time to submit that. We have one question already. We have divisive issues from time to time that happen in any community, but we certainly here in North Kansas City, where different groups have different outcomes that they are interested in. How do you approach those divisive issues with those different groups that want different outcomes?
I first believe that everybody needs to be heard. I mean, heard all the way through, so that you can get through the emotion and get to the real questions. After everybody's been heard, there's usually some investigating that needs to happen. And then we can come to the table, not in an emotional way, but in a practical way of this is our goal over here, and this is the second goal, and how can we meet somewhere in the middle? Because there is a middle. I don't think the middle gets talked about a lot, but it definitely exists.
How, and this leads right into, and so I apologize for all of the tough questions coming tonight. That leads right into the next question, which is, what is your position on Armour Road?
Okay, well, I do have an opinion, but first, if you'll bear with me, I was able to go and talk to Gardens Buildings 1, 2, and 4 before the shut-in for COVID-19, and they had voiced concerns, safety concerns that concerned me as well, since they were worried about it. They were worried that response time would be hindered by the complete street, and that a trip, if needed, to the hospital would be slowed down. So I reached out to Police Chief Freeman and Fire Chief Hargis to ask those questions. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read their responses so
Please.
that it's not my words. So Fire Chief Hargis said, "To date, we have not encountered any additional emergency response difficulties with the changes on Armour Road. The lane structure and traffic volume on Armour Road have always presented challenges, and unless the actual call is on Armour Road, we have always avoided running code, that's lights and sirens, there. So the modifications have not affected our responses. If there had been, or should there be issues with emergency response, those issues would be addressed with the appropriate city staff." And I can attest to that because I had to ride an ambulance on Snake Saturday. So it was nuts, but I made it there. Chief Freeman, who's for the police department, said the new design of Armour Road has not significantly impacted the police department's response to emergencies. Armour Road before the redesign had its challenges as well. Our officers train on emergency response, which includes being able to anticipate a driver's inability, either due to conditions or lack of knowledge of the laws, to clear a safe response path for us. Our officers know when Armour Road experiences high volumes of traffic and pre-plan alternate response paths when responding to emergencies. So these are the experts, and they're telling us that it hasn't impacted response times or the ability to make it to emergencies. If residents found that they thought that was not true, that's something I would definitely want to know and to ask again. Oh, then my ideas. Sorry, I was like, boom, done. No, I actually have ideas too. I know it's been brought up before, but I'm just going to say it again, that there has been a lot of money spent there already. I'm not in favor of tearing it out. I'm not in favor of how it is either. One of the things that I think is a major problem is the delineators, which are the sticks that are sticking up everywhere, are visually cluttered and confusing. So when you look down the street, you should be able to easily see where the path for cars are. And if you did something physical like a bump out or a planter or something that squeezed the space visually instead of relying on the sticks, I think it would create a clear line of vision so that you would know where your car belongs. And there were other concerns that I think the city council already addressed, which was, the post office always had parallel parking in front of it. And the handicap spot was in the diagonal parking after you turned in. And when they first did this, they put a handicap parking spot in parallel parking, and I understand that would be a safety issue. And they did remove that and made it a regular parking spot. So some of that could be done immediately. Now, I know that this decision's been pushed off to August. I would say what I hoped would happen is that we would be having real discussions of what we could do if we weren't ripping it out, because keeping it as is or getting rid of it doesn't address the myriad of choices that we have in between, and there are a lot of choices. The other thing I would be concerned about is $100,000 of that is a grant. And I think that the streetcar has a lot of support in the area, but that's an expensive project. And if we're going to do it, we are going to need grant money. So I'm afraid if we accepted grant money and less than a year later went back to how things were before, we will be less eligible for receiving grant money if that's how we took care of the funds.
Again, a loaded topic and lots of information. Thank you for reaching out and gathering that information for our voters. What can our city do to build relationships with neighboring communities?
How timely. I don't think this question could be more important than right now. We need to work together. The UBU model of the past is not what we're living in today. We have to function as one community. So my ideas on this were, well, I guess I'll just go back to what actually happened. At the beginning of the shutdown, the Kansas City metro area mayors all seemed to be on the same page, and we all shut down. When the decision was made to reopen a week early, and I know that it's just a week, but every day counts, in this epidemic. But when we opened a week early, it felt very disjointed. It didn't feel like we had met with the team. I mean, we're totally surrounded by other cities. The other thing I found that was disappointing is that North Kansas City didn't have their own phased in plan of what to require. So at the special city council meeting that I was watching, they said, well, they would defer to Clay County. Clay County hadn't come out with anything yet. So I think we missed an opportunity there. I mean, I truly believe one of the most important things that the city needs to do is protect its businesses, residents, and people, patrons that come in. And this is a pretty important issue to backtrack, go early, don't meet with the other mayors, and then not really have a plan of how to implement it. So I think we could do better.
So going back to the question, how do you think that we could build those relationships for, heaven forbid, another situation that might arise like this?
Right? Yeah, it has to be in place before an emergency happens. Rita had a great idea when she was on to attend other city council meetings. And I thought that was a great idea for several reasons. I think it builds the relationships that you need if you see each other face to face. I think it also gives us a peek at how our surrounding cities are dealing with same issues that we're dealing with. And we can use that bond as a way to grow responsibly and safely together.
We currently don't have any questions. I know that they will still trickle in, so I'm going to throw in one of mine. What is it about you that you want people to know about why you are running for city council and what makes you a great candidate?
I have lived here for 14 years, pre-kids. My kids are 9 and 10 now. City looks much, much different now than it did 14 years ago. And that's a relatively small amount of time for everything to boom. I'm here. I plan on staying here. I'm involved in the community. I care about the issues, and I want to hear all sides of a story. I mean, I feel like ultimately in my job and at home, I'm a problem solver. That's what I do. I am not a knee-jerk reaction type person. I gather information, I sit and think on it, and I use that information to make informed decisions.
All right. Jesse, you're doing it again. So he has a question. What is your number one favorite dish from a restaurant in North Kansas City?
Gosh, I'm going to have to piece it together so I can get all of them. Tater tots. I am like absolutely obsessed. I'm sure my kids are looking at me. Yes, tater tots are my favorite. So tater tots from Chicken and Pickle are amazing, and I love their burgers too. So I'd have to go there for number one.
Okay, that's one that hasn't been mentioned
Although
yet.
I need to shout out to spices because we do love spices. I just can't pick one thing.
I think a better question, Jesse, might be, what's your number one favorite dish from every restaurant in North Kansas City? We are really lucky to have the culinary expertise that we have in our community. So I don't know how you would even get to that place where you could pick one restaurant.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And that was always our thing, is to go. I mean, that was our entertainment. We will go out and try different restaurants.
As I'm waiting to see if any other questions come in, what do you think the number one responsibility of a city council person is?
I really feel safety is first. It's kind of like the building blocks. You have to be safe before you can move on to the things that you want. You need the things that you need. We need to be safe. We need to have an effective and well-trained fire department and police department, which we do. So continue that. Parks department, we need to be a place where businesses can thrive and startups can flourish. We've got to support all pieces of our city, which includes lots of different types of businesses, lots of residents, and visitors. We've got tons of visitors.
We do have tons of visitors. I'm going to throw out one more question while we're waiting for any other questions to come in. And then absent any additional questions coming in, we'll let you give your closing statement. As we talk about, I mean, we've been very blessed to have Harrah's as a support to our city financially, but we have a lot of amenities and always have. I mean, I lived here in the early 90s as well, and before I moved away, moved back. We have a lot of amenities that we love. How do we ensure that we can pay for those long term, regardless of what happens with Harrah's?
Long term, which first of all, shout out to Harrah's as well. You know, they've given Briarcliff Elementary a $5,000 grant every year until I think they missed the deadline last year to apply for it. And they've, from musical instruments to outdoor classroom, they've really, really supported the school. So that's wonderful. But I think the diversity in what we have to offer, from steelworks to restaurants to crafts to everything. I think if we're diverse, we have income coming from different areas. Again, I'd like to harp on that streetcar. I really think the streetcar can easily bring in more people that want to be here. And I'll tell you, if we have friends from up north somewhere, let's say, we go pick them up and bring them to North Kansas City so we can all go out together, and then they Uber home. We walk home. So the easier you can make it for people to get here and get home safely, I think that's wonderful.
Excellent answers. Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak directly to the constituents here in North Kansas City, both those that live in your ward, but just in general, because I think the more we know about our candidates and our city council persons, regardless of where we live in town, I think the more informed we are and the better off we are. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes, or, don't worry about the time as much as making sure that you convey what you want to convey to the voters. And I'm going to hide myself for those closing statements. So just be patient when I come back on.
Okay. I first want to say thank you to Mindy and Dave for setting this up. I mean, we can't go door to door right now. It's not safe for people I would visit or for me or my family. And this was so needed and so important. And thank you for sticking it out through the technical difficulties, all of you guys that are on watching. I really appreciate it. I hope that I earned your vote if you're in Ward 2. And I hope that I demonstrated that I will do the research, I will be prepared, and I care about issues that you care about. For everyone that's not in my ward, this is a small city. I'm walking through your neighborhood, I guarantee you. But I wanted to shout out, our ward is bigger than you might think. We've got our people at the Gardens, City View, Northgate Village, Sunny Hills. If you live on the west side of Ozark, I see you, and I want to represent you. So thank you for joining in. And if you have any questions that we haven't addressed, even though this was very thorough, please don't hesitate to contact me. I have sent out flyers and mailers with my email and phone number. Feel free to text or call. I've had a couple questions already from City View, so I appreciate your time. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope I get to represent you in a couple weeks.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have really enjoyed being able to get to know each of the candidates myself through this process. And so I am really confident that anybody that has an opportunity to watch these live streams is going to be able to get to know the candidates themselves as well. Because after all, we are still neighbors. Regardless of where we live and regardless of who wins, we are all neighbors at the end of the day. And we all love this town, or we wouldn't live here.
Exactly.
So election is 1 week away, June 2nd.
Yes.
Our polling place is the YMCA, and you can enter through the east gym door is what I'm told. We'll put up some more information about that. The time to get your absentee ballot, it has passed. And so if you want to vote, I can tell you in my own personal conversations with the Clay County Election Board, they have taken lots of steps to ensure our physical and health safety as we go to the polling places on June 2nd. So if you need help with that, we are neighbors. We will help make sure that you are safe to vote if you still want to vote.
Yes.
We know that the municipal
Voting,
elections. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, voting's your superpower. Mask up and stay 6 feet away.
And, you know, I'm sure if we need to get some sanitizer from Rieger or from Restless Spirits somewhere, we will find some hand sanitizer if we need some. But really, this is the most, if anything that COVID taught us, is that the most important elections that we can vote in are our city and county elections, because those are the ones that directly impact us, especially as we've learned in a public crisis like we have. Yeah. So please vote. We know that voter turnout is usually really low in the general municipal elections each year. And I know I've said it each broadcast, but I implore you, I'm just going to tell this real quick. Charles Shaughnessy, do you know who he is, Lisa?
No, but I'm terrible with names. Oh,
do you
yes.
remember? Okay. So I got to interview him several years ago. He has dual citizenship. And he said, there's one thing that I wish I could tell the citizens of the United States of America is that the greatest right that we have is not the right to bear arms. It's the right to vote. And the most important time to vote is when it's in your own backyard. And I thought, wow, here he is.
It's a strong message.
That's a strong message. So please vote. Please vote for the candidate that you feel will embody the values that you have and the concerns that you have in our community, and that you think will do a good job at looking at the 30,000 foot view. But regardless, vote. We will be back in about 15 minutes with Tony Saper. We are going to do it using the same platform with technology and all the glitches. I'm at home where I have solid internet and I don't have a computer that's crashed. I'm on my other computer. So we will be back in 15 minutes. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties as we transition to doing social distancing for this virtual candidate forum. Lisa, thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, with that, we will say adieu and see you in 15.